Hello, everybody, and welcome at a new episode of Follow Your Passion. Let me introduce my guest of today. Her name is Shannon Villalba. She's the heartsong lawyer, as she calls herself. Shannon is a business and intellectual property lawyer and intuitive business design coach who's living in her genius zone. She's absolutely loves what she does, educating and empowering entrepreneurs. Shannon has a unique approach to business as she develops unique business and legal strategies integrated with the chakras, the heartsong chakra framework. So her clients can create a business that is aligned with their visions for their lives. She's been given a second chance as a cancer survivor of a rare cancer, and she's grateful to be able to share her knowledge with other entrepreneurs. And if you go to her website, I love how she calls herself. She calls herself an accidental entrepreneur with a law degree. Welcome, Shannon. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
So tell me about this being an accidental entrepreneur.
Sure. I was an artist before I was a lawyer, and I noticed that I wanted to be a for music video director, and I was
Mm-hmm.
in the music industry, and I was a graphic artist, music video editor, those kind of things. And then I realized that I didn't want to actually pursue that career. So I moved from Los Angeles to Ohio, where my parents were, and they were like, "Can you help us with our business?" And I was like, I'm an artist. I'm not anything to do with business. I don't know what to do, but they needed help. And so I started helping them with their business, which was a property management company.
Mm-hmm.
And they owned a really big apartment complex, and I had to learn how to you know deal with rents and people and go to court, to get evictions or do other things. And so I learned a lot about law, and because of that I started learning more about business and contracts and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, being an artist, I was really interested in copyrights and trademarks.
Yeah, yeah.
And finally, I learned the landlord tenant law so well that my attorney was like, "You need to go to law school. You need to go to law school." And I said, "Well, I think that's a great idea. If I go to law school, then I'm going to go to law school to protect people like my parents, who are business owners, and artists like me. And I think it would be great if I had my own company, so I can kind of dictate, how my career is going to go." And that's how I ended up being a lawyer and an accidental entrepreneur, because thankfully my parents gave me that opportunity to
Nice.
introduce me to the world of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying because I never intended to become an entrepreneur as well. Yet I'm already down 7 years in the business and I'm loving every minute of it. So I can totally relate to that. So,
Yeah.
um, where did the chakras enter your business?
Well, I've always been a very spiritual person. I've been studying the chakra system and crystals since about 2001
Mm.
and 2000, formally. Like I started thinking about, especially with the cancer that I went through. I use a lot of the therapies that I had learned, you know, outside of, through my personal interests. So learning how to
Mm-hmm.
balance my chakras, using color, using crystals to help heal. And I just kind of had this epiphany once when I was just sitting on the beach, like watching the waves, and I was thinking about my own business and where it was going. And I started thinking about the soul of the business. And I was like, well, if a business is its own entity, can it have its own chakra system? And if it does have its own chakra system, what would it look like? And then I just started understanding more, like how the chakra system works within the person can also work within a business entity. And it also makes it easier to understand, especially if you're more a creative thinker like I am, and you need a little bit more a stimulus to actually comprehend how things work. And when I was putting it together, I was like, oh, this totally makes sense. So like if you have your foundations, you have your contracts, and you have your business systems, and your lawyers, like your accountants, all of those people there in your foundations, and then you move up to your copyrights and your sacral, and your solar plexus is your trademarks, and your heart is all your relationships, and then if you apply those to contracts and other business concepts, then you can see like, oh yeah, that's right, that's why my crown chakra is all marketing and connection to the world, and then it flows all the way down. And I'm like, oh, well, then if you start looking at let's run a business that way, then it becomes a little bit more manageable instead of becoming so overwhelmed, because then it becomes easier. Like, oh, okay, I need to be working on my solar plexus, my brand. So what other things do I need? Okay, I need to be cognizant of my trademark. I need to be looking at how can I protect my trademark. Oh, well, I need to register it. Oh, I need to, license it. I need to have non-disclosure agreements if I have confidential information, and that goes up to your heart, because it goes to your relationships, but then also goes down your root, because the contract is a foundational document. So
Nice.
if you look at it that way, it's all of a sudden it just becomes like, oh, it's a lot easier to run a business when I can understand these legal concepts, I can understand these business concepts, because like, especially when you're just starting out, it can be overwhelming, like with all the things that you don't know.
Yeah, and it's I never thought of it, but it makes so perfect sense. And it's actually funny because in my business and also in thing when I'm giving a training or whatever, and I need to explain something to my clients or my trainees or whoever is sitting there, I love to use metaphors, right? To use it in a language they can understand and relate to, so that it's easier to translate it from this metaphor to their own situation or business. And it's actually what you're more or less do as well by using the chakras in the person as a metaphor to a business.
Yes.
And then you can explain how it should work. Like you said, you have to have a solid foundation. Once your foundation is solid and is ready, you can take it to the next level. And so it totally, it makes perfect sense to me, but I've never thought of this this way. So thank you for explaining that. So it seems like a very odd combination, in a sense that there are a lot of presuppositions that people have about lawyers and other occupations, of course, and combining the creativeness of an artist and the law as a lawyer and the spirituality together makes you very unique, I guess. How do your clients look? Do they have a certain presupposition when they first meet with you, and do they tell that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I always am like attracts like, high vibe entrepreneurs always find me and they really enjoy my perspective on things. And yeah, I am extremely different. So my ideal clients are similar to me. And when I can talk to them about the chakra system or having crystals in their business, they're all like, oh, that's great. I definitely want to see, because they're very well rounded. So
Nice.
it's interesting because like, yeah, I'm not your typical lawyer at all, and I'm here to serve those people out there who find law intimidating, and make it easier for them to understand. And once you have that education, then nobody can ever take that away from you. And that's what I want to do. I want to empower entrepreneurs.
Yeah, nice. So would you say that your ideal client is a spiritual and creative background, but doesn't want to be bothered with the law?
Well, not necessarily. Some of them have like spiritual leanings, and they're more of the holistic entrepreneur. They understand that there's so much more to a business than just the business, legal, financial. There's they see it as an entity. They see it as part of their dream, part of their persona, and they understand that it's an entity that needs to be cultivated and nurtured like a child. And they also have like a worldly perspective, and they just might not know a lot about the law, and they know that it's necessary, and they're eager to learn. And that's why I love working with them, because they just love learning about how they can take their business to the next level, because they have that legal education, or they have that business education that I'm giving them.
Nice. And it's I just thought of something, but it slipped my mind again. It makes sense to have entrepreneurs that are open-minded and wanting to grow. And it's I recognize it that people are more grounded, when you work with them, and when they're looking at the whole picture. And it's also, and that's what's coming back to my mind again. If people start a business, they are the business, right?
Yeah.
So if I talk with my clients as well, we're talking about vision, mission, core values, and 99.999% of the cases, their core values, their vision, their mission is what are the company's vision, mission, and core values.
Right.
And why should that change when you're growing your business, right? It's still the same basis. So you can actually look at it as an entity, because the person who created the business is, well, you could almost say is the business. So why treat it differently, right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly what you're saying. Like, I've seen that even in my own business, my own mission, my own values, they all get integrated into my business. And when you take that chakra framework system and you say, okay, here's, the chakra system for your business, here's my vision, here's my values, then you're looking at your business more as in a holistic perspective. And when you're an entrepreneur, your business is so much a part of you. And even when you start growing and scaling, you start adding other people's energies to it, then it becomes its own entity itself, like a child, but it's got other people's input into it. And so you have to take that into consideration too, especially like when I was talking about like your heart chakra, with your relationships, with your contracts. And if you're adding people into your business, like, you have to consider, if they're going to be spending time with you, or they're going to be working with you, and you're going to be building this business, like, let's put it down into writing so that everybody has clear communication, with your throat chakra. And you do that through contracts.
Yeah, nice. And it actually, only talking with you already opens my mind as well, because being a mindset strategist. I like to talk about the levels, or the logical levels of change from the pyramid of Bateson and Dilts. I'm not. Are you familiar with that?
A little bit.
Okay, well, it starts with your purpose, your mission, right? And below that is identity. Then you get your values and beliefs. Then your skills. Then your behavior, and down below is the environment, right?
Okay.
And I always say that bottom up, it can influence the level above, but you decide in what way it will influence. And top down, it always has, per definition, it has an influence on the lower levels, right?
Right.
And
Absolutely.
if you change something on the beliefs level, it will definitely have an influence on your behavior and your skills, right? And it's the same with identity. And the most top one is your mission or your purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I certainly made the comparison with Simon Sinek, start with why, right?
Right.
And that's also your why is your purpose, it's your mission. So if you know that and you're following this pyramid of Bateson and Dilts, it's the same similarity as what you're describing with your chakras in the business.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you have your purpose, your mission, then you have your corporate identity, then there's the beliefs and values, so your core values, then you have the skills that your company has, and then it shows certain behavior towards the environment.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
there are a lot more similarities than we might think there are.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. It's because if we're talking like on the business and legal level, we're going to be talking about, those other concepts like the trademarks and the contracts and financial systems and legal systems, the protections that you put into place, like trademark registration, copyright registration, licensing contracts, employment contracts, independent contractor contracts, and copyright assignments, and all of that kind of fun stuff that kind of goes up the chakra system, but that integrates, when you think about, your vision and your dreams for your business. I mean, that's going to be your third eye. And then, your visions and dreams and your goals, they all, go back down to your foundational, what are you putting in your foundation to get to those goals? And how does the world see you? How can you market yourself, and that through communication? And how can you protect your brand, through the trademarks and copyrights and the contracts, and it all integrates together. So then it's like similar to your concepts, like once you understand the pyramid, then it's so much easier to be able to do your planning, to do your vision for the business, to determine, how to implement different strategies that will further those goals or further those visions, and then integrate the business all together. And so when you're looking at that business from a holistic perspective, it actually becomes a lot of fun and less intimidating and overwhelming.
Yeah, I can imagine that. So if you look at yourself, you started out as an artist, then came you were already spiritual, and you added the law to your foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still use all your skills and your talents to run your business and to help your clients?
Yeah, actually I do, because I do crystal healing. So I've been studying crystal healing and crystal surgery now for almost, 3 years. Almost, oh no, more like 4 years or 5 years now. I'm thinking about it. It's like 2000, we're in 2023, and pandemic kind of, it was
Yeah.
pre-pandemic. 2018, I started studying formally. And so I love to integrate those things into my business when I'm counseling my clients. I might talk to them about different crystals that they might use or different meditations they might use. I might actually teach them a meditation to use. Or also, like, because they're inclined that way. They want to learn about different things. And so we just naturally start talking about crystals for business, or using meditation, or using affirmations, or using mindset techniques, to overcome something. And I really actually love that, because I'm not just talking about boring legal, I'm not talking about boring business. We actually have like a very really great conversation about I start getting, and it's interesting because we're called counselors, and I hear everything, because it's like when people come in for a consultation, I'll hear all the legal stuff, I'll hear the business stuff, but then like all of a sudden something else will come in, and I'm like, oh, okay, well then I can understand like what's going on in that person, like what is happening that might be affecting the business, and how can I help them in some other way. So I'm not just giving the legal advice, then I'm also being able to provide them with information regarding things that will enhance them and take them to the next level as an entrepreneur, so that they can overcome some obstacles in other areas of their lives that might be affecting the business.
Nice. And that's the beauty, because a lot of times you hear discussions about life coaches and business coaches and what's the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, I can't separate the two.
Right. Yeah.
Because when you're a business coach, you have to help the person in the private lives as well, because they're interconnected. You can't treat them separately, in my opinion.
Yeah. You're just gonna need you're especially, like, it's interesting because, like I'm saying, seeing it from the lawyer perspective. I mean, I've had clients come and tell me a lot of personal stuff that's going on with them, and then I see what's going on with the business. I'm like, okay, well, let's see how we can take care of this personal stuff so that we can move on to, like, with your business, especially, and I use myself as an example, like limiting beliefs or imposter syndrome or any of that. Everybody always has that.
Yeah.
And until we like get rid of those things, then in all of our aspects of our lives, including our business, that's going to be affected.
Yeah. It also reminds me of a remark one of my coaches once said, and it was like, how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yeah.
And it makes sense, because we're habitual people, right? So if we do one thing personally, why should we do that? Why shouldn't we do that in a business as well? One of my core beliefs or my core values is keeping my promises, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I express that as I never use the snooze button, right? Because when I set an alarm in the evening to wake up at a certain moment in time in the morning, then I'm making a promise to myself to get up at that certain time, right?
Yeah.
And if the alarm would ring and I would hit the snooze button, I'm already breaking the first promise I made that day. And it's a promise I made with myself, right?
Yeah.
So how can I make sure that I keep my promises with my clients if I'm not keeping a promise I made with myself?
True.
Right? I'm not saying that it's bad to use the snooze button, but I always say if you need the snooze button to wake up, use the snooze time ahead of time. So if you want to get up at 7 and it's 7 minutes, then set it at 14 to 7 so you can snooze twice. And the third time it goes, you get up, because you made an agreement with yourself to get up at 7, right?
Right.
And it's just an example of how, let's say, how my mind works. But that remark of this coach, how you do one thing is how you do everything. It's really stuck to me. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you have any habits that help you in your business?
Well, a lot of it for me in my business, I treat my business like a child of mine, like a part of me, I guess. Not and there are times when I like to like have a conversation with my business. And I know that sounds kind of interesting, but I believe that my business has a soul. As I studied with a shaman who was talking about and teaching us about how like different things have souls. And I'm like, well, that makes sense. If everything is energy, then that concept stuck with me. And I'm like, how can I communicate with my law firm? And then if I'm thinking again, like my law firm has a chakra system, then I can say, okay, how can I balance this chakra system in my business? And then because I just take my own framework and I'm like, okay, well, let's see. I want to work on right now. I'm working on my throat with communication, my throat chakra, and that communication, like podcasts and articles and blogs and videos and things like that. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's right. I'm really needing to balance that chakra. But then I have to go back down to my solar plexus. I'm like, okay, and think about my brand and think about, how do I communicate my core values and my mission, because this is my business's brand. And then how do I also bring that out into the world? How do I bring my light of my business out into the world through relationships as well?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm thinking, like, I love how that's how I run my business. And since I've started using that framework for my business, it's become a lot more personal and more just intimate. Like, I'm not like, oh, this business is a pain in the butt. No, this business is part of me. That is I birthed this. I've had my business now for 10 years, and it's been by my side like an old friend, so learned like a child. So
Yeah.
so and I realized that I need to take care of it in a certain way that also resonates with who I am. And once I started doing that, it's interesting how, like, when we were talking about clients, how people who think the same way, who feel the same way, just started naturally finding me or referring me. And I've built my business on referrals, which is a beautiful thing, because
Definitely. Yeah.
yeah, I've been able to help people, like, take, really nurture their own businesses and help see them grow. And it's really fascinating to watch, especially when someone who doesn't know anything about business, who wants to start a business, who then starts a business, who then gains all this knowledge and starts just blossoming like a flower. And they feel confident and empowered because they have the legal education, because they have the business education, but they're also realizing that, this is something that I need to take care of and nurture.
Nice. But that also means that you're leading by example, because you're applying your own framework to your own business as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And people can see it's working. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
nice. So where do you see yourself standing in about 5 years time from now?
Oh, this is great, because I actually want to build the heartsong entrepreneur and heartsong lawyer brands. And I did start a podcast as well. So I'm dipping my toes into that. And I'm currently in the process of putting some ideas down for different types of books that I want to do. And absolutely, I have a course that I'm going to be offering and
Mm-hmm.
this year that takes people through the chakra framework and gives them the legal education, but also the kind of more of the esoteric education as well, with meditations and the crystals, integrating all of that to see how they can implement the chakra framework into their own business so that they can really take their businesses not just to the next level, but like to really comprehend and understand the nuances that there are in business and not be blindsided.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm seeing a lot, is like using the chakra framework. It lessens some of these like blind sides that you get, when you're an entrepreneur, especially like when you're integrating other people into the business, or if you're building a brand, and your intellectual property, you're once you get that knowledge, then it's kind of like, oh wait, I'm hiring this person. What type of contract do I need? What kind of provisions would I need in this contract? Oh yeah, that's right. I should probably have a pretty robust intellectual property provision if I'm sharing a lot of confidential information, and I don't share anything until that person signs it.
Yeah, makes sense. And it's about, well, what you said is about protecting your baby, right? It's your business.
Yeah,
Nice.
absolutely.
I had I'm not sure if you mentioned that with your clients as well, but one of my coaches ran into that, is that if you have a partner in the business, and things go sour, then it's very hard um to make the right agreements, how to separate from each other. And sometimes it scares my clients when I tell them, if you're going to partner, make sure you also have an exit strategy, meaning
Yes.
that if things go sour, know who gets what, right?
Right.
Like the intellectual property, like your client database, all those kind of things. Because when things are good, it's much easier to make such agreements than
Yeah.
when things go sideways.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
That's exactly what I tell my clients too. Like, especially if they're starting a business, I'm like, okay, let's work on your operating agreement now and your buy sell agreement now, so that if something happens, that there it is, black and white. That's what you agreed to, you know.
yeah, but it sounds scary and strange for people, because when you're deciding to get married with your spouse, you're not talking about the divorce and who gets the dog, right?
Right. Right.
Yet in business, it should be common sense, even though you're not planning to separate. But it's like an insurance policy, right? That in case something goes sideways, at least you got the papers how to divide the things.
Yeah, and it's really important, especially when you start talking about the sale of a business, or the, breaking up of a partnership, or even if somebody passes away, and then you're in a very high emotional state. And it's actually very comforting to have like a document there that says, okay, these are the procedures of what we need to follow. We agreed to this, and let's get this done, boom 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 boom, and then we can go on our way. You take the emotion out of it,
Yeah,
right? Because like, we make irrational decisions when we're emotional, but if we already have a blueprint to follow, then it just becomes so much more, yeah, like manageable. Especially because I've written many operating agreements, many buy sell agreements, and then sure enough, something has happened, they want to sell the business, or they're breaking up the partnership, or somebody has passed. I'm like, okay, well, let's look at your foundational documents and then follow that strategy. Take the emotion out of it, just keep following, move along, and then, oh yeah, that's right. And I'm like, thank goodness I have this.
yeah, yeah. And I guess also that when the company is growing and developing itself, you should periodically update the document as well, I guess.
Yeah, you can. Some people, especially like when they're adding members to their LLC, they'll go back. So they might start out as a single member LLC, and then they want to add a member. And then, so then I said, okay, let's look at your foundational document. And some lawyers say, oh, you're a single member LLC, you don't need an operating agreement. I'm like, yes, you should. You should, because then you get used to that. You get used to having those formalities. You understand how you're running your business. I mean, that's why it's called an operating agreement.
Yeah,
That's how your business operates. So then when you add in a member, then you can update your operating agreement, and then you add in a buy sell, fund your buy sell, how you're going to fund your buy sell agreement. You understand all of those things that happen, and you can update it as you add more people or as circumstances change.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I'm afraid we can talk for hours on entrepreneurship and how it's developing, because we're both helping entrepreneurs to get the best out of themselves in the business. So I guess there's stuff to talk for ages almost.
Right,
if
absolutely.
if there's one tip or little piece of wisdom that you would like to share with the audience, what would it be, Shannon?
So if you're looking at building a brand for your business and you're looking at different names or slogans, just do a quick search, do a quick Google search, or go to the United States Patent and Trademark Office and do a search there, or the registrar for your country and do a search there, so that you're not going to be starting out your business like infringing on somebody else's intellectual property rights. Because I've seen too many brands out there that have come to me and said they've got a cease and desist, I have to rebrand, and then it becomes a big issue. So if you're just starting out, and the best thing that you can do is to do a search to see if somebody else has your name that is offering the same goods and services.
Yeah, and that's important, that's offering the same indeed, because you can have similar names but in totally different fields or industries, and that's fine as long as there's no conflict, right?
Right, absolutely. Yeah, but it's when you're starting to use it and you're offering the same goods and services, then it becomes a problem, and you don't want to start your business that way. I mean,
No, definitely.
a 5-minute search could save you thousands of dollars and heartache.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a great piece of advice, especially coming from you, Shannon. So if people want to know more about you or get in touch with you or follow you, how can they do that?
You can go to my website, it's villalbalawfirm.com, or you can reach out to me on Instagram at heartsong lawyer Shannon, or you can look me up on Facebook at Shannon Villalba.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom, Shannon. I really had a great time talking to you. It's very inspiring. So thanks again, and let's keep in touch.
Likewise, thank you so much for having me.